the Aspen Institute Rodale Fellowship. It's patterned after Cecil Rhodes' Rhodes Scholarship. He was a communist as well. So this is a long-standing battle. Most of the strings that go from there go right back to London to a bunch of think tank socialists and uber wealthy individuals whose names you do not know. And they are playing chess with money to manipulate American society to break down the fabric of society. George Soros funnels money into Oklahoma to elect district attorneys whose tasking is do not enforce the law and frustrate law-abiding citizens until they begin to act out of frustration. We live? All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be in Sapulpa, Oklahoma. And my sister actually lives here, and a lot of my family live here. If anyone knows Glenn Jett, he just passed away a couple years ago, but he worked as a handyman, roofer, and builder right here in Sapulpa. Did you know Glenn? So I actually spoke at his funeral here, and he and I absolutely love Paul Harvey news and commentary. How many remember the rest of the story? And so they said, hey, say again?
I use that as a tagline often.
As a tagline?
Yes.
And now you know the rest of the story. And so I actually started out the eulogy, my portion of the eulogy, quoting Paul Harvey, because that was what we always like to talk about. So today we're going to talk about a number of items here, but before, I wanted to give honor where honor's due. Thank you for the invitation to all the way from Shawnee, Oklahoma, to drive up and fellowship with fellow patriots. And speaking of fellow patriots, we've got Grandpa Todd Gallagher, and Marine veteran, and my friend, your state senator right here from this district, so it's good to see him on Grandpa duty. And I see we have Congressman Hearns, field representative here. Thank you for being here, brother. It's good to see you. And a number of people who've driven in from outside the district, in addition to myself and my wife, Anna. So honored to be here. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Oklahoma, and then most importantly, what you can do to continue in the fight and be effective in your efforts to move Oklahoma in the right direction. And I'll just say, Haley, thank you for your presentation, the work that OCPA is doing. I enjoy partnering with your organization. And she's exactly right. Not only do we have extremely liberal Supreme Court, we are also hamstrung. So the next battle, if we can get them out, is taking control of the judiciary nominating process, remove it from the Oklahoma Bar Association, which is just as left as those judges, and put it in the hands of people who are accountable to you, like elected officials, the governor and your senators, so that we can actually have judges that reflect Oklahoma values and actually care about our Constitution. So that will be battle two. If we can get the governor to be able to start making those appointments, we got to make sure that the Oklahoma Bar Association doesn't select 3 individuals, 2 of whom are not qualified, and the one liberal is the only, and then play chicken with the governor to appoint the other 3. They are in control of that process, and that has to end. So just a little plug there. How many are familiar with the Only Citizens Voting Initiative that we passed the very last day of session? How many are aware of that? So let me tell you a little bit about citizen-only voting. It's going to be on the ballot. And this is a bipartisan. Now, you wouldn't think about it by listening to our national Democrats talk about it, but Democrats in Oklahoma, 80% of them believe if you're not a legal citizen here or you're not a citizen here, you should not be voting in the elections. That's really straightforward. Most Americans feel this way. 90% of Republicans believe that only citizens should be voting. And the 10% that don't, they're not real Republicans. So here's how this happened. And this was what I call a daisy chain of micro miracles that happened the last week of session, this session. So we know Sine Die is the last Friday in May. So the week before Sine Die, I get a call from the National Citizen Voting Organization who say, we want this to pass in Oklahoma. And I said, me too, that's a great idea. Where were you in February? I go, next week is Sine Die. There's no way. Well, as it turned out, the bill was filed in February by our colleague, Michael Bergstrom. But it was filed and then assigned to committee where it never got a hearing. And so it was there, but we didn't get a call from them. I didn't get a call from them until literally the week before. And I'm like, bless your heart, you're behind the 8 ball. And but I appreciated their interest, and I wanted to be helped. And they said, what can you do to help us, Senator? And I'm like, really nothing. They said, well, but I didn't say that because I didn't want to discourage them. And I said, well, this is a heavy lift. That's code for it's impossible. And they said, well, what can you do anything? And I said, well, now that I know it exists, because it hadn't hit my radar, because we didn't see it, it wasn't heard in committee, so it didn't hit the floor. I said, I'm happy to co-author it. I'm like, thank you so much. I'm like, you're welcome. Right? And they said, is there anything else you can do? And I'm like, I'll issue a press release. Right? And they're like, thank you, please do that. And I said, okay. So I went, the next day I went to the Capitol, I co-authored it, and I issued a press release praising the virtues of, if you're not legally here or you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be voting. That's pretty no-brainer. So I sent that out, and they're like, thank you for doing that. I'm like, you're welcome, bless your heart. And then they called me a couple days later and said, we're coming to Oklahoma next week. I'm like, it's literally the last week of session. I'm thinking, you're wasting your time, your money, bless your heart. I like you. Your heart's in the right place, but this is a fiasco. It's not possible. And they're like, well, we're flying in on Tuesday. And I'm like, well, my room is 417. You can use it as a base operation. Be sure to spend money on hotels and food while you're here, because at least you'll help the economy. And so they came into my office on Tuesday, and they're like, what can we do? And I'm like, well, there are a lot of conservatives who would love to support this. Not to mention, it's huge support across both Democrat and Republican lines. And I said, I can get other senators to run, to also co-author. I'm like, yes, that'd be great. I'm like, okay, I'll go get you some signatures. And to me, I'm just bless their hearts. And so I go out and I go to my friend Todd Gullahar on the Senate floor, and I said, hey, jarhead. I'm a Navy guy, he's a Marine, so we have this thing, right? Or crayon eater's my other favorite one. Any veterans in the group? You know what I'm talking about, right? So I said, hey, I need your autograph. He goes, what you got? And I said, it's an initiative for only citizens to vote in elections. Well, absolutely. Put his hand, signed it, went to the next. If you look at a lapsed time of the video of the floor, you see me going from desk to desk to desk to desk to desk to desk to desk. And it was interesting because Senate leadership had the opportunity to hear the bill, but for whatever reasons did not. And this is hugely popular and very much grassroots initiative. And so they didn't. Priorities or whatnot, I'm not going to speculate. But at the end of the day, some of the members quickly signed up. Some of the members didn't want to sign up. If they're from liberal areas or whatever, they were reluctant about it. And I just said, hey, I need your autograph, Citizens Only Initiative. Would you like to sign up? And the more signatures I get, those that said, well, let me think about it. I brought them back. I had more signatures. It was hugely popular. I'm like, okay, I'll sign, right? And what was interesting was that for regular bills, this is internal mechanism. For regular bills, you have to have first reading, second reading, and third reading. What that means is you have to have a 24-hour day expire for each of the first, second, third reading. Well, by the time that clock expired, it would be after Friday. So there was no way to get it passed, except for one little teeny tiny detail. God. Well, yes. But this was not a Senate bill. It was a Senate joint resolution, and the clock didn't require it. So So we didn't disclose that to leadership because we were suspicious. Why did they didn't hear it to begin with? So we thought, you know what, that intel we'll keep close to our vest. So they're thinking I'm wasting everyone's time and my time, and I'm scurrying around getting signatures. But it was interesting the shift that happened as I got more signatures from my Senate colleagues who sincerely agreed with the policy, and some who didn't. It began to shift the narrative from there is no support for this because it didn't get a hearing to there is a critical mass of support to overwhelming support to more than 30 of your 40 Senate members, and more would have signed, I believe, had I got around to them, because the clock was ticking, right? So suddenly it went from being no one's interested in to everyone's interested, to the narrative would have to have been the only reason it didn't pass was because leadership didn't listen to the will of their caucus, which was very interesting because your senators was listening to the people back home that cared about it. So the lesson learned for this was the more co-authors you have for legislation you care about creates a critical mass and sends a strong and powerful message to leadership. My caucus wants this because their people back home want it. And so that was a very eye-opening experiment in the legislative process. And so also there was a fight, if you recall, between the House and Senate. So it occurred to me that there's some machinations on the Senate leadership side that if they drugged their feet, then we could get credit for passing it in the Senate, but the House would fail to pass it because they run out the clock. And so we got this critical mass, and we kept bringing it to leadership. Hey, we've got support. Hey, we've got support. We've documented over 30 senators have signed on to this. So suddenly, regardless of what the intent of the caucus was, the story was going to be, because it was writing itself, it didn't pass because you didn't support it. So what we find is politicians tend to see the light after they feel the heat. Well, inadvertently, we created a firestorm on the Senate floor simply by demonstrating senators who were listening to their people back home really wanted this to happen. And so it was passed. It was the very last bill passed on Sine Die, the Friday in May, was the last one we passed. As soon as it passed, I did a selfie on the Senate floor pointing at the scoreboard, and I ran all the way across the rotunda to the House side. I go, it just passed. So I'm sitting there waiting for it to pass, because we've already done in the Senate, waiting for it to get to the House side. And floor leader John Eccles summons me over, and he doesn't look happy. And I go, what's up? He goes, Shane, it takes 5 minutes from the time you vote on it to get to my desk. I've been waiting for half an hour. Everyone's ready to go home. Where is it? And I go, I don't know. I ran here as quickly as we passed it. He goes, well, it shouldn't take this long. We've been waiting. It was the speaker's bill. Of course they're going to pass it. So I run all the way back to the Senate side going, hey, they're waiting on the House side to get this passed. What's going on? They were moving, I believe, intentionally slowly to try to run out the clock so they could hang it around the House side for failing. That's my analysis. Now, if I had proof of that, I could publish it. That's my analysis of what was going on. And so I went over and said, hey, they're waiting for this. John Eccles is not happy. What are we going to do? And one of the staffers says, I'm going up to my office right now to put it, it'll be there in 5 minutes. I go, okay, I'll let them know. And I run back across the rotunda, and I said, John, they said they're going to put it up. It's going to be up in 5 minutes. He goes, we're going to have to start recognizing the executive assistants and everything because people are ready to go home. And I said, they said 5 minutes. That's all I know. They recognized everybody within 5 minutes. It was up on the board. They immediately brought it up. They voted on it, and it passed. That's impossible. It's nothing short of a miracle. It went from not being heard in February, nothing happening until the last week of session, which means things are possible if the people of Oklahoma and their representatives want it to happen. It can happen. So congratulations for all of you. Todd, thank you for standing with us on that issue. I have some bumper stickers that they mailed to me. They're so excited. So if anyone wants some bumper stickers, we've got those. And there's going to be a lot of people excited to get out and vote for it because this is a failure of the White House's immigration policy allowing people to stream across the border. I believe they intend to have them, we know it is their idea that they're going to be able to register them to vote. That is their intention. And when we were looking and talking with U.S. senators from Oklahoma who pulled the metadata to see where all of the apps of those illegals who are coming across the border for asylum, more than statistical probability, they have moved them into red congressional districts. This is happening. This is happening.
They've already found 1,500 illegals that have voted in other states.
Yes. And there are lawsuits going on. You have Washington, D.C. that is allowing them to vote. You have the Democratic People's Republic of New York, have allowed them to vote. And you have the people, well, the chairman of the Potawatomi Nation, I know we're recording, the chairman of the Potawatomi Nation went after me in a joint chamber event shortly after that and said, "Why'd you do it? You're just grandstanding." Well, in a private conversation that I was aware of, that he wasn't aware that I was aware of, he had indicated he thinks if your child is in public schools, you should have a right to vote for who's there, regardless of your immigration status. So the people who are opposed to it, now, of course, he's Potawatomi. He's not going to allow a Cherokee boy to come in and vote against him for his seat. Of course not. But to undermine the United States so they can put a leftist ideological regime in place? Absolutely. So this is happening, and there's people in Oklahoma who support it. Probably, I would say, G.T. Bynum from Tulsa, who is a shill from the Aspen Institute's Rodale Fellowship. Also, you have David Holt, a pretend Republican in Oklahoma City, who also pushes this leftist ideological things. He is a shill just like Kamala Harris is part of the Aspen Institute's Rodale Fellowship. Gavin Newsom from California, part of the Rodale Fellowship. Pete Buttigieg, part of the Rodale Fellowship from the Aspen Institute. These things are happening. They are moving people and personalities into Oklahoma. Bank of Oklahoma and the Kaiser Foundation are moving talent from the East and West Coast in to try to purple our community. This is happening, all right? I've taken a side. I've taken a stand. And I will fight for Oklahoma, and I will fight for this country. And these are individuals who are trying to break our state. Question in the back?
Who's reporting on what you just talked about, bringing people in? Who's reporting on that? Where do we find details on that we can share with other people?
Me.
Okay.
I'm the one that did the research. Yeah, and I'm happy to share it with you. So, yes, sir.
Can you tell us what Cherokee Federal is doing?
So right now there's... So I'm Cherokee, and I noticed there's 2 Cherokee tags out front. You're also Cherokee? All right, Osio Tohiju Osta. So I'm also Cherokee. I'm a patriot. I'm a Navy intelligence officer, and I swore an oath to kill or be killed to fight for the Constitution of the United States. The Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr. and his cabal are in cahoots with the leftist ideological cabal in the White House. They have funneled millions of casino money into leftist congressional races all across the United States, from California to New York. And you don't see the money that they spend in Oklahoma because they use LLCs and LLCs and LLCs to hide it. And what they do is they take Democrat consultants and they put them on retainer through these LLCs. That's not reportable campaign expenditure. And then these consultants provide free pro bono assistance to Democrats running against Todd and me and others. They funnel money into these campaigns, and you will never see them. They have a PAC. Roughly 45% of their money goes to Senate leadership and House leadership to placate them. 55% go to Democrats. Now think about the ratio. There are 8, sorry, we lost one, thank God. There are 8 Democrats, and 55% go to the Democrats, okay? On the House side, we have an overwhelming supermajority. Now, some of them are actually pretend Republicans, that's a fact. I report on that too. But so 55% of their overt money that they publish, that the Cherokee people get to see, are going 55% to Democrats, 45% to Republicans. It seems somewhat equitable. The truth is, millions are being shelled out through their casino subcontractors and LLCs. So now the human trafficking that you're looking at, here's what's going on with that. It was called out and then they backed off on it. But what they're doing is they're using tribal sovereignty to shield themselves from reporting what is going on. And then they're basically subcontracting back out to the federal government agency to be able to execute that contract. So whenever our Senate delegation want to ask for questions, it's like, sorry, we're sovereign.
Right.
And they said, but it's the federal government who is providing those services. So the federal government effectively is funneling money through the Cherokee Nation and then respecting their sovereignty so they don't have to disclose to the American taxpayer what they're doing with it. So this is happening. The McGirt decision was a Boston law firm who cherry-picked that one out of Oklahoma to disrupt and break a red state. This is going on. Here's the other thing. Back up 100 plus years to 1907. There were more socialists registered to vote in the state of Oklahoma than there were Democrats or Republicans. Woody Guthrie, this land is your land, this land is my land, literally was a communist. Unfortunately for him, the communists didn't think he was disciplined enough to be a full member. But he said, I did not meet a political party that I belonged to until I found the Communist Party. And this whole Antifa, anti-fascist thing is a long-standing theme. On his guitar, you can find portraits of him in the state capitol. This is an fascist killing machine. Okay? We have a long history. 1907, we became a state with a lot of socialists here. 1917, we attempted a Bolshevik-style revolution in Oklahoma. August of 1917. 3 months later, the Bolshevik Revolution, patterned after the failed American Revolution by communists, succeeded. Exactly the same playbook. This is a long-standing history. Kamala's is an ideological communist.
That's right.
She may not even comprehend the strings at the end of her. You know, as she cackles her way into success after success, financed by the same shills that are pushing the World Economic Forum, the same shills that are funding the Aspen Institute Rodale Fellowship. It's patterned after Cecil Rhodes' Rhodes Scholarship. He was a communist as well. So this is a long-standing battle. Most of the strings that go from there go right back to London to a bunch of think tank socialists and uber wealthy individuals whose names you do not know. And they are playing chess with money to manipulate American society to break down the fabric of society. George Soros funnels money into Oklahoma to elect district attorneys whose tasking is do not enforce the law and frustrate law-abiding citizens until they begin to act out of frustration. If you have Obama phones, these are burner phones for drug dealers is what we called it. It's also now burner phones for Intel operatives integrated into our homeless populations. And you take a look at it. They're wanting to give driver's license for illegals. They want to reduce the ID requirements so the poor vagrants can get their checks that is from your tax dollars, right? From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. It means redistribution of wealth and violates one of the 10 commandments that says, thou shalt have no other God before me. Because when you have a government that's omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, then you are using vernacular to describe a government that those monikers should only be applied to a deity. They're in violation, and they want to steal from you, because if you refuse to give, men with guns will come and take your stuff and give it to the people who have a documented greater need than you do. This is the essence of socialism and communism. This is what's going on right here in Oklahoma. Does that make sense? Now, what they're doing in the library systems, wait for it. They haven't done it. They're going to do it. They provide grant money. And we talked about the Green New Deal. They provide incentives for petroleum companies to align their assets to run after federal dollars, your dollars, to align them after greenhouse gas capture, which only drives up the cost of fuel, so you will stay home. And we have senators who, because they see this money coming into Oklahoma, they want to capture that without thinking, how does it make my petroleum companies reconfigure to an inefficient structure that is only giving legitimacy to a failed narrative, which is the climate change cult. And it is a cult ideology.
It is, right.
Anyone who's espoused the climate change cult ideology are themselves advocating for better or for worse, that a significant portion of the population has to die in order for the planet to survive. This is the idea. So we cannot embrace that or give legitimacy by chasing short-term dollars that is going to misalign our petroleum industries after this ridiculous greenhouse gas capture or climate change cult ideology.
It's the noose around the neck and all that, the noose pull.
That's right. That's right. This is what's going on. So,
Do you have anything happy to say?
do I have anything happy?
Yes.
Yes, yes, I do. Yes, I do. So here's some good news. As of Tuesday of last week, the newest member of the Freedom Caucus was established on the state capitol steps in Oklahoma. We are the 12th. And this is basically the conscience of the grassroots and the conscience of the Republican Party. And so as we stated in our press conference, this is not about personality. Amen. This is not about politics. This is making sure the values of the grassroots who care about our Constitution will always be part of the dialogue and the discussion on debates as it relates to the money that we take from you on April 15th and spend or misspend, and making sure that the tremendous amount of power that we the people cede to the consent of the governed, right? That we cede to state government, that the state government never takes that power and runs over its own people with their money and the power that they receive from the people. Does that make sense? And so a lot of people go, oh, this is a far-right fringe organization. I'm like, yes, that's what they call people who love Jesus and love the Constitution. And so we're not interested in, like, oh, they're disruptive. No, no, no. We want to disrupt squandering of your tax dollars. And if I don't care if the state chamber wants every employer to be able to take the federal mandates and force people to get vaccinated, you are not sovereign over your employees' bodies. Amen. And those protections need to put into place. That's what state governments do. When the federal government comes in and overruns their constitutional mandates, then the state government puts up a wall and says you can't do that. And so
flip the switch with abortion and what you're talking about right now. In one case it's your body, in the other case, no, it's not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's your body if you want to kill the baby inside you. But it's not your body if we want to, save the planet or save. Absolutely. So these things are going on. We see what's going on, and we would like to elevate the conversation to talk about the principles of the Republican platform, and more importantly, the principles of the Bible and the Constitution of the United States. And so that's what the good news is that we have been fighting these fights. Conservatives, as we hear from our constituents, we've been fighting. We now have a nationwide organization that will help us do the research, because a lot of these climate change ideological alignment with the petroleum industry, these are shell legislation that's been pushed in, and often they will not tell the author of the bill the origin of the bill. Right. And so they will say, hey, this is a great bill, it's going to bring all this money in, and a Tulsa senator goes, oh, that sounds great, let's go do that. Yeah. But doesn't explain to them, this is really what we're trying to do. And so what we're going to have is the support of the national organization who's going to show us these are the types of shell legislation that are coming in. They're undermining liberty, undermining freedom, undermining your petroleum industry, so that we can go to our colleagues on the Senate floor and say, this is what's going on. You want to pull this bill before we take it on the floor. So we will have the national organization to help us organize that information. We'll also be partnering with these organizations, grassroots organizations all across Oklahoma, funneling that in so that we can, and this is very important, because a lot of our well-intentioned conservative legislators get tricked into doing bad votes. And they'll come up on the floor to us and go, how do you know to vote no? And then we can work them through that. Well, if I could go to all of those senators, many of them would vote with us once we explain the principles underlying our vote. What happens is they get penalized by conservative organizations who then score their vote later. And they're like, if you would have told us that before we made the vote, we would have voted correctly. There's so much information and so much misinformation and manipulation by lobbyists and special interest groups. So what we're going to provide for our colleagues is the pre-warning. This is what's coming. This is why it's contrary to all of the things you campaigned on, to help them align their votes with the promises and the values of the campaign that got them elected. Does that make sense? So that they can vote correctly and not be punished after the fact if their heart's in the right place and their information is misaligned.
You need to frame your arguments that we reject all new forms of slavery. Because everything they're pushing is slavery.
Yes.
And we also reject, that which takes human life prematurely. Mm-hmm. That's like the vaccines, it's like abortion. and
Kim
give
Terrell?
citizenship. See, what they're trying to do, they will give citizenship to every last one of these illegals before the election. You just watch.
Mhm.
That's what they're moving.
That is their
right now.
intention, absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
question
so,
for the question.
so we're in agreement on that. And actually, in a Republican caucus, when we're talking about the grocery tax, a huge number of the senators did not want to cut taxes. They did it because they felt like they couldn't get away with not, right?
Right.
And so, especially on the income tax is taxation on the people who are actually creating wealth. Grocery tax is across the board for everyone, and it's going to be gobbled up within a couple of tax cycles. So we're pushing, and I raised the question. I said, what do you call 100% taxation on your labor? That's called slavery, to your point. Question over where? I think you had, Paul, you had yours up. Yes, sir.
So I would like to be your House counterpart. But I want to close out the discussion you had earlier about only citizens vote. It's my understanding that it will be on the November ballot. Is that not correct?
It is going to be on the November ballot. Yes, sir.
And that was very intentional because we want to encourage people who are proud of Oklahoma to vote and to get out to vote. So the bullet to the ear is probably bringing more people to the election to the November 5th, but we need to elevate this as well as a way to tell people this is really important. If you're not there on November 5th and you don't vote for conservatives, you're going to lose all of these things.
That's right. Because you're going to have the Democratic People's Republic of Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Norman are going to allow illegals to vote in those cities. They will do it. Now, the new mayor, by the way, in Norman is fantastic, Bible-believing Christian, Navy. Yeah, so we're making strides in pushing back in the craziness of Norman. Yes, ma'am.
Can you also, before you close, talk about SJR 16?
SJR 16, I looked that up.
It's a big no.
Yes.
It's a no.
It's a no. They're putting them in districts. What they don't tell you is what's hidden in there. They're getting contract to Congress to make any law that's going to be over your land. You sign anything to get a bond. All bonds are just more increase of tax. They just give you an
Yeah.
amount, I'm just telling you. And then it has that they're going to put them in districts, and then they're going to levy your land. This is another way of going after land grab.
Yeah.
They're trying to get it where you don't own that land anymore.
That's right. That's right. Well, and the federal government is going to try to purchase more and more land around federal land. At the end of the day, the World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. You'll be happy because we say so, right? So, yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you know about the research we've done on the database and the stuff we found, close to 180,000?
Are we talking about election integrity database?
No, this is what we just recently did. I brought in some people and we did an analysis. They've done it in Ohio now. It's just called an intense investigation because of finding these algorithms and everything. We have close to 180,000 registrations before the
Registration of what?
registration. This is voter roll.
Okay, so it is election integrity.
Yeah, but it's
Here in Tulsa.
it's more than election integrity. This is corrupt. And we have a guy that, I don't know if you know, Jerome Corsi.
I know the name.
Okay, he's high intelligence, went through everything. He said he used to work for the CIA. He said this is CIA operative, this whole thing in the databases. They're finding it in New York, they found it in Ohio, they found it in New Jersey, they've done some in New Texas. And so they've had like 13, but anyway, I was gonna share this today when you're done, but I didn't want you to leave.
No, I will hang out. So I am aware of these initiatives, and I'm keenly interested in the new, the race for President Pro Tem of the Senate that's coming up in November. Because there's so much disruption, and that's in flux right now. The right leadership means we'll be able to take a hard look of things that we've been pushing for as conservatives, that we've been pushing for that has been blocked. I'm all in. I want to look at your data.
I got names, I got the registrations, I know who voted, we can tie it back, and since we've downloaded it, anything they do from this day on, we know.
I love it. I love it. Let's work together. How much time do I have? Because I have one thing I want to close out on.
You've got about 10 minutes, and then we're going to give Christy like 10 minutes.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, sir, right here in the middle.
Shane, you won by 50.1%.
50.06.
Okay. Tell this group the impact that the Lions Den had on that slim victory, because we are going to try to start to have some sort of a corollary group in the northern part of the state to the Lions Den.
Absolutely.
Explain that to the-
So let me just kind of give you some backdrop. So I am one of 4 100% conservative voters, according to all the conservative indices in Oklahoma. So those people who don't like me to say no, because guess what? Lobbyists and state agencies do not want less of your money. They always want more. And the only way to stop them is by voting no. So no one up there with tremendous amount of money wanted me to come back because I wasn't for their deal, because I'm for the people that elected me and their deal, right? Which is keeping their money at home. So about $250,000 were spent against me. Okay? There were TV ads of me, AI recreation of me holding a Chinese Communist flag, walking across the screen on Fox News with the voiceover, Jett cannot be trusted. He is helping the Chinese Communist Party buy illegal grow houses and purchase your farmland. Vote no on Jett. Okay, I can send you the link if you want to see it. They attacked me one mail out a week for 13 weeks, starting during session all the way through. They text blast my districts with the same types of lies, with pictures of me burning money, pictures of me flushing money down the toilet. I'm one of the most conservative members of the Senate. Okay? Lying. Jett's aligned with Biden. Jett is the best friend for illegal immigrants. I mean, all of this stuff. Nuts. Then they recruited 3 candidates to run against me. One was a shill for the teacher unions. One was a leftist who wouldn't know conservative values if it hit her in the face. Chamber of Commerce, Representative Chris Kennedy bundled the money and funded one of the liberals to run against me. And so 4-way primary, okay, 3 Republicans running against me, $250,000 spent against me, tremendous amount of lying, smearing, including on television and YouTube. And we got as many votes as all 3 of my opponents combined, plus 11 votes. Not even a runoff. Why is that? First and foremost, God is sovereign. I give him the glory, because we should be knocking doors until August 27th by logic. But we had the Lions Den group, that is a group of volunteers that help conservative candidates put together yard signs, put together mail-outs, whatever it takes lots of hands to do. 4,001 nights that they put together. My wife wrote a letter, passionate letter, just kind of telling who we are, sent it out. We got telephone calls and people saying, just really appreciated the letter. We couldn't have done it without Lions Den. They're getting ready to open another Lions Den chapter in Norman, Oklahoma. They're making a difference. And it's just volunteers like us, grandparents and grandkids just come together. We have food, and then they create an assembly line of licking, stamping, posting, handwriting, and getting a tremendous amount of work out. And those make a difference. And a lot of those elections that the establishment and tremendous amount of outside money was coming in smearing, it was the Lions Club that was being pushed back against them. Plus, they came and knocked doors in my district as well. These things matter. Yes, sir.
Lions Den just did 3,500 for Paul Hassing for District 79 just the past week. So
yeah, it is fantastic. Yes, and they also some of the senators.
Do you think it made the difference? I would say that.
Well, think about it. 11 votes.
Exactly.
11 votes. Right now, I had the next runner-up was almost 2-1 ahead of him. That 11 votes kept me from having to knock doors for 2 months straight while they continued to pound me with negative lies, right? So here's the thing. The good news is that, 1, God is sovereign. He's on the throne. And if my people, which are called by my name, that's not the crazy turquoise-colored women who want to sterilize their kids so they can virtue signal, right? It's just us. If we get on our knees, cry out to God, and do what He asks us to do, He brings the victory. And I'll point you at Judges. Look at Judges and the story of Gideon. Whenever the angel of the Lord showed up to him, he was hiding in a winepress threshing wheat. He wasn't acting courageous. He was just surviving. And God said, "You man of valor." His emissary said, "You mighty man of valor." The moment those words left the spoken word of God, that's precisely what Gideon was. Because when God speaks, He can't lie, because the moment He speaks it, it's the truth. He spoke and this world appeared. We are standing on God's spoken word. Every atom. And when he says you're a man of valor, that's what you do. That's what you are. And when Gideon called for the men of Israel to come forward and fight the tens of thousands of Midianites who were running over them, thousands showed up. Wasn't enough, but thousands showed up. Why? Because that's what you do when a man of valor calls for you to go to battle. But then he brought them down, and God said, this is too many. Brought them down to the river, called them out, had 600 against tens of thousands. And they said, will it take a miracle? And he's like, precisely. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what Dominion does. And we will fight them at every battle. We will fight them. But here's the truth. If God wants, a lightning storm can come in, change those algorithms, and we win, and they'd have to expose themselves to prove that it was the lightning that did it. Here's the thing. If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I, God Almighty, will hear from heaven and I will heal their land. So as much as you stuff envelopes, as much as you knock doors, as much as you reach out and make phone calls and text messages and emails, all of that is important. Make sure you don't get lax in your prayer life and ask God to pull down the principalities and powers and rulers of darkness. Because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. That blue-haired turquoise lady is precious to Jesus. And you want to see someone who's going to be an advocate for Christian conservative values, let them encounter Jesus Christ on the road to Damascus when they just got through holding the coats of those who stoned Stephen. God is in control. The heart of a king is like a river in his hand, and he will turn it wherever he will. Understand that we're going to win, if not in this life, in the next. But we serve the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and no weapon formed against us can prosper. That's the truth. I'm going to do one more question, and I know that we're running short on time. I have if you remember, I gave you a homework assignment, so that we're getting ready to do that. If you don't have a pen, I brought pens. So this is group participation. Okay, so get those out, get a pen. If you don't have a pen, we'll give you one. Last question. Yes, ma'am.
Were you going to say something about the pro tem race?
So I mentioned it briefly. The pro tem race, I believe, is important that we have a conservative that reflects the grassroots values, and regardless of who the pro tem is, the Freedom Caucus will be there to, in good faith, reach out to whoever the leader is and say, we are here to speak on behalf of the grassroots conservative moms and dads back home. And we're going to first collaborate, and then we will do whatever is necessary to make sure that we are always discussing what is important to the people back home in those discussions and in those debates. So yes, reach out to your senators, make sure that you're urging them to support the conservative, and make sure that they are also part of the conservative voice who's urging leadership to listen to us and you, and not the lobbyists and the state agency heads who simply want more of your money. All right, so here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to the Capitol, and you're going to talk to Todd, if he's your senator, and you're going to go talk to Todd's neighbor on either side, and you're going to start creating relationships. At the end of the day, we're people. We are accountable to people back home, and we don't like to hurt people, right? And so if we have the right information and we have the right relationships and we're connecting with real people, it can begin to shift the hearts, right? When they see that there's sincere support for certain initiatives. Sometimes they simply do not know what they do not know, because the lobbyists don't come and say, hey, we're really doing a number on your constituents back home. Don't tell anybody. So sometimes I find out there's something hidden in a bill because someone in that profession or industry figured it out and got the information to me in time. I share it with my colleagues. Sometimes it's not enough to get it before we actually have to vote on the field. So the more quality information we have from real people, the better it reflects in the quality of the legislation we run. So you're going to get a lot of cards as you encounter people. So this is a little technique that I use to help organize myself to make sure I can use it in the future. So on the back of the card, upper right-hand corner, I put the date. So you would put today's date, because this is the date that we had this conversation when you got this card from me. Today's date, upper right-hand corner. Now I use military time, 2024 for the year, followed by 09 for the month, followed by 09 for the day, and then I'll actually put 1200. It means it was a noon event, so I can track it down. Help me recall where I was when I had that encounter. I have 11,000 contacts on my phone. I do the same type of thing, so I can look at everyone I met in 2020, 2021, 2022, and I shorten it down, okay? This helps. Now, the next thing right below that, I put where I was. So I'd put Ladies for Liberty, That tells me it was here. And then I put the name of the church and Sapulpa. That tells me it's physically right here. And then I would put anything else that stuck out. And here's the most important thing, and I hope this is important to you. I understand how tremendously valuable it is to be able to reach out and touch Oklahomans all over the state, because you helped me pass legislation that I can't brute force pass on my own without you picking up your phone and calling your legislators. If you text me your name, I will save it in my phone. You'll be 11,928. And I'll put that in there. And then I will put Ladies for Liberty. And whenever we have conservative things that are happening at the state capitol, I will text you and ask you for help or ask you for prayer. I will connect with you. I don't have a blast email system. I literally was at one after one, copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send to all the people, because I have passed legislation because grassroots all over Oklahoma picked up the phone, lit up the switchboard, and made the politicians feel the heat. They saw the light, and we were able to protect children against critical race theory in public schools because of people like you. So that's my cell phone number. The other important thing is write Anna and say wife, Anna, important data. People figured out that sometimes because I do have so many contacts, I'll get tons of text messages. And if they haven't heard from me in 48 hours, Miss Cornelius, they will text my wife and go, hey, I haven't heard from Shane. So there's a lot of data to cover, but I make myself available. I've had this number for 20 years. It's not changing. I love Oklahoma. I'm going to do whatever is necessary to make sure my kids and my future grandkids inherit a country that we left better, not worse off, if at all possible. All right? Appreciate you guys. Thank you for inviting me out.